something that had clearly reached you in some way, because your face, and this is the part that stopped me. This is the thing I haven't been able to stop thinking about, since your face was doing something I don't have a perfect word for. It was open, completely unguardedly open, in the way that faces almost never are in public, almost never are even in private, unless the person has completely forgotten to be careful. It was the face of someone receiving something, really receiving it, all the way down, letting it land in the deep places instead of keeping it at the comfortable surface distance we usually maintain between ourselves and the things that might move us too much. You were letting it move you, and you didn't know anyone could see. I want to tell you why that moment hit me as hard as it did, because it's not just that you were beautiful in it, though you were, in the realest and most unperformable way. The kind of beautiful that has nothing to do with arrangement and everything to do with authenticity. It's not just that, it's what that openness told me about you, what it revealed, what it proved, in the most quiet and undeniable way, about who you actually are underneath everything you show the world on purpose. With you are someone who still lets things in. I know that might sound small. I know it might sound like I'm making a lot out of a little. But I need you to understand, truly understand how rare that is, how extraordinary it is. We live in a world that is very efficient at teaching people to protect themselves, to develop a certain careful distance between themselves and anything that might reach them too deeply, move them too fully, leave them too exposed, and most people learn that lesson well. Most people build very effective systems for keeping the moving things at arm's length, for appreciating from behind glass, for being touched but not too touched, moved but not too moved, open but only to a controlled and manageable depth. So, you haven't done that. Or if you have tried, and I suspect you have, because you're human, and that's what humans do when they've been hurt. It hasn't fully worked. The openness is still there. The capacity to be genuinely reached is still intact. And I watched it happening in real time last night. And I felt something rise in my chest that was equal parts tenderness and gratitude, and something that doesn't have a clean, simple name, but that I felt before, specifically in relation to you, this particular complicated, warm thing that your realness consistently produces in me. Let me go back further. Let me tell you something about what I was doing before I caught you. Because the contrast matters. Because where I was before I saw you is part of why seeing you hit me the way it did. Were I tired last night? Not the physical kind of tired that sleep fixes, the other kind. The kind that comes from a long period of giving a lot without being entirely sure any of it is landed. Without being entirely sure the words are reaching anyone in the real way, the deep way, the way that actually changes something instead of just passing pleasantly through. You probably know that feeling from your own life, the exhaustion of effort without visible evidence of impact, of pouring yourself into something and not being able to tell from where you stand, whether the pouring is doing anything at all. That was where I was, quiet and a little hollow, and not entirely sure what I was doing or why, in the particular way that only comes when you're genuinely depleted and haven't yet found the thing that will fill you back up. And then I saw you, and something happened that I want to try to describe accurately, because I think accuracy matters here. It wasn't a dramatic shift. It wasn't a sudden rush of energy or inspiration or renewed certainty. It was quieter than that. It was more like, remember when you were a child and you were very cold and someone put a warm blanket around your shoulders? That moment when the warmth starts at the edges and moves slowly inward, and you didn't realize how cold you were until the warm thing arrived and your body recognized the contrast. It was like that. Slow, real, reaching inward from the edges. To you were the warm blanket, without trying, without knowing, just by being exactly as you were in that unguarded moment, open and real and letting something reach you, you gave me back something I hadn't realized I'd lost. I want to talk about something that I think about more than I usually say, about what it means to be someone who creates things. who puts words into the world regularly, consistently, over a long period of time. I think from the outside it might look like a kind of confidence, like someone who has decided they have things worth saying, and is simply saying them. And there is some of that. I won't pretend there isn't. But underneath it, and this is the part I don't talk about as often, the more honest and more vulnerable part. Underneath it is a constant, quiet question. The question is, does it reach? Not is it good, not is it impressive, not does it accomplish what I intended, technically, but does it actually reach the person reading it? Does it find the real place in them, the underneath place, the place that isn't performing or managing or maintaining a safe distance? Does it land where it was trying to land? That question lives in me every time I send something out into the world. And most of the time I don't get to know the answer. Most of the time the words go out, and I have to make peace with not knowing whether they found the real place or skimmed the surface, whether they were received the way they were sent from somewhere true toward somewhere true. And then last night, I saw your face, and I had my answer. Not just for that piece of writing, for all of it, for every word I've ever struggled to find, every sentence I've rewritten, until it finally felt honest enough. Every moment of wondering whether any of this matters to anyone in the real and lasting way. I had my answer, because your face in that moment was the answer. Your openness was the answer. The fact that it was reaching you, all the way down, in the real place, that was the answer. You gave me that without knowing you were giving me anything. I want to tell you something about the specific way you were sitting. I know that sounds like a strange thing to focus on, but it's not strange when I explain it, I promise. You were curled into yourself slightly, the way people do when they're reading something that's pulling them in, when they're unconsciously making themselves smaller to fit more fully into the experience. Knees up, or shoulders curved forward, or some version of that instinctive self-containing that happens when something has your complete attention and your body is trying to help your mind go deeper into it. And one hand was near your face, not doing anything specific, just there. The way hands drift toward faces when people are feeling something they're not consciously processing yet, when the feeling is moving through them before it's had time to become a thought. Huda, I know you, I know that gesture. I've seen versions of it in the way you express yourself, in the pauses, and the way things land when you respond. And seeing it physically, seeing the real-life version of the interior thing I've always sensed in you, it was like finally hearing a song out loud that I'd only ever heard playing quietly in my memory. Recognition so complete it almost hurt. And then you did something else. Something that I am going to tell you about, but I need a moment first. I need to just sit with the fact that I'm about to tell you this, because it's the most important part. It's the thing that happened after the open face, and the curled posture, and the hand near the face. The thing that came after all of that. That took what was already a profound moment, and made it something I know I will carry for the rest of my life. You smiled. Not a big smile. Not the kind you perform for photographs or put on for company. The small private kind. The kind that happens when something has reached you so completely that your body responds before you can think about whether to respond. The involuntary kind. The kind that is only possible when your guard is down and something true has found the true place in you and the truth of the meeting is just good. Just simply, quietly, warmly good. That smile, your smile in that moment, for no one, because you didn't know anyone was watching. That is the thing I couldn't stop thinking about last night. That is the thing that kept me awake. That is the thing that filled the hollow place in my chest and replaced the tired with something warm and solid and real. Because that smile was proof of something I've believed about you for a long time, but haven't always been able to say clearly. It was proof that underneath every layer of whatever you show the world, underneath the managed version, and the careful version, and the version that knows it might be observed and adjusts accordingly, underneath all of that, There is someone who is still completely, fundamentally, beautifully alive to the world, who still feels things fully, who still lets the good things be good without immediately protecting herself from how good they are. That aliveness, that is the most precious thing I have ever been given the privilege of witnessing in another person. And you gave me a glimpse of it last night, without knowing, without offering it, without deciding to be generous. You were just alive, and I happened to be paying attention. And I am so grateful. I am so deeply, quietly, overwhelmingly grateful. I need to tell you something that I've been building toward this whole time. Something that the catching of you last night finally made clear enough for me to say without hedging or qualifying or wrapping it in enough careful language to make it feel safer than it actually is. I think you underestimate yourself. Consistently, habitually, in ways that are so ingrained you probably don't even notice them anymore. I think you have decided somewhere along the way, probably after something happened that made the decision feel protective and therefore reasonable, you have decided that you are ordinary, that what you carry and what you feel and what you give and what you are is nothing particularly remarkable, that the things that make you different are probably more burden than gift, that the depth of your feeling is probably more inconvenient than valuable, that the openness I saw on your face last night is probably a liability more than an asset. I want to tell you with every serious, honest, unperformed part of me that you are wrong about all of it. The depth is not a burden. The openness is not a liability. The feeling things fully is not a flaw in the system. It is the system working exactly as it should. It is the rarest and most important thing about you. And the person sitting in the dark last night, letting words reach them all the way to the true place, smiling the private, involuntary smile of someone genuinely moved, that person is not ordinary. That person is extraordinary. And I need you to know that someone saw, that someone was paying attention, that the extraordinary thing you were being in that private moment did not go unwitnessed. I saw you, I see you, I have always seen you. And there is something else I noticed last night. Something that happened after the smile, in the moment just following it. Something small, something that most people would have looked past entirely, but that I couldn't look past because it said something about you that goes all the way to the center of who you are, to the most important and most beautiful truth of you. Chubrid, you reached for your phone, and you started to write something, and then you stopped, and you sat with whatever you were feeling for a long moment. Just sat with it, not rushing to translate it or share it or do anything with it. Just letting yourself feel it fully before deciding what to do with the feeling. And that pause, that small, quiet, uncelebrated pause between feeling something and performing the feeling, that pause told me everything. Everything I needed to know about the quality of your interior life, about how you actually process the world when nobody is asking you to be anything, about the kind of person you are in the private moments that nobody writes about, and nobody applauds, and nobody even knows to look for. You are someone who honors your own experience, who takes it seriously, who gives it the dignity of being fully felt before it becomes anything else. And that is not a small thing. That is one of the largest things I know about you. One of the truest. I have been trying to find the right words for what I want to say next for the past hour. Sitting with it. Doing the very thing I just described watching you do, feeling it fully before deciding how to translate it. Because it deserves that. Because you deserve that. Because some things are important enough to be worth the patience of waiting for the right words, instead of settling for the available ones. And I think I finally have them. Or close enough to try. What I want to say is this. Last night, watching you without you knowing, I felt something clarify inside me. Something that had been slightly out of focus, slightly uncertain, slightly too complicated to look at directly, it came into focus. And what I saw when it finally became clear was something so simple that I almost laughed at how long it had taken me to see it plainly. I am better because of you, not in the abstract, not as a figure of speech, not as the kind of thing you say because it sounds right, actually, measurably, concretely better, kinder to myself, more willing to believe that what I do matters, more able to sit with my own experience, without immediately rushing to translate it into something useful for someone else. More capable of that pause, your pause, the one I watched you take last night, the pause that honors the feeling before deciding what to do with it. You taught me that, not by teaching, by being, by consistently, faithfully, without any agenda or awareness of the effect, by just being exactly who you are in every small and large interaction we've ever had. You taught me by example in the way that only the most genuine people ever teach anything, not with instruction, with presence. And there's something that happened right after you put the phone down, right after the pause, something I almost missed because I was still inside the feeling of the pause itself, still moved by it, still understanding things from it. Something that shifted the whole shape of the night for me, that made everything that came before it suddenly feel like it was leading somewhere specific, like all of it had been quietly pointing toward this one small moment without my realizing it. You looked up, just for a second, toward the window, or toward the dark, or toward something I couldn't see from where I was. And the expression on your face in that moment was something I don't have adequate language for. But I'm going to try anyway because trying matters. Because you matter enough to justify the attempt, even when the words fall short of the thing they're reaching for. It was the expression of someone who has just remembered something important. Something they knew but had temporarily forgotten. Something that, in the remembering, feels like coming home to a place you didn't realize you'd been missing, until suddenly you're back. And the recognition is so complete and so warm that it fills you from the inside out. That was your face, for just a second. In the quiet. When you thought no one was watching, and I was watching. And I want to know what you remembered. I want to know what thought crossed through you, in that moment, that put that particular light on your face. I want to know because I think, I feel, with something stronger than thinking, that it connects to everything I've been trying to say, that it is somehow part of the same conversation we've been having across distance and time, the long, slow conversation that has been happening underneath all our other conversations, the one that has always been moving towards something, even when neither of us was quite sure what, because here is what I believe. Here's the thing I'm most certain of after everything that last night showed me. Whatever you remembered in that quiet upward glance, whatever arrived in you in that moment and put that light on your face, it was something true, something yours, something that lives in the same part of you, where the real smile lives, where the openness lives, where the willingness to be fully moved lives, something from the true place. And the true place in you is the most important place I have ever been allowed close to your face. I want to know because I think, I feel, with something stronger than thinking, that it connects to everything I've been trying to say, that it is somehow part of the same conversation we've been having across distance and time, the long, slow conversation that has been happening underneath all our other conversations, the one that has always been moving towards something, even when neither of us was quite sure what, because here is what I believe. Here's the thing I'm most certain of after everything that last night showed me. Whatever you remembered in that quiet upward glance, whatever arrived in you in that moment and put that light on your face, it was something true, something yours, something that lives in the same part of you, where the real smile lives, where the openness lives, where the willingness to be fully moved lives, something from the true place. And the true place in you is the most important place I have ever been allowed close to, the most generous thing you have ever given me access to, and I do not take it lightly. I have never taken it lightly. Not for a single moment of all the moments we have shared, across whatever strange and beautiful distance exists between us. I stayed awake for a long time after. Long after you had gone, long after the night had settled into its deepest quiet. And I kept coming back to your face in that moment. The open face, the private smile, the pause, the upward glance, and whatever truth moved through you in it. And I kept feeling the same thing, over and over, from every new angle I looked at it from. I kept feeling like I had been given something. Something I didn't ask for, and didn't expect, and wasn't prepared for, which is always how the most important things arrive. Something that I am going to be careful with. Something I am going to carry the way you carry something you know is rare and irreplaceable, and not entirely yours to keep but yours, for now, to hold with both hands, and treat with all the gentleness it deserves. And there's something else from last night that I haven't told you yet. Something that happened much later, after everything I've just described. Something smaller but in some ways more important. In some ways the piece that makes all the other pieces make complete sense. I've been deciding whether to tell you. Trying to figure out if I have the right words for it. Trying to understand if saying it will give you what it gave me, or whether it needs more space around it first, more context, more of the surrounding story before the center of it can be fully felt. I think I'm ready. I think after everything we've moved through together in this conversation, the ground between us is solid enough to hold it. I think you are ready to receive it, and I am ready to give it, and the moment is as right as moments get, which is never perfectly right but right enough, warm enough, honest enough, close enough to the true thing that the gap between what I can say and what I mean to say feels crossable for the first time. It starts with something I wrote down in the middle of the night. Something I wrote by hand, which I almost never do, because something about what I was feeling needed the slowness of handwriting, needed the physical commitment of pen and paper rather than the speed and erasability of a screen. I wrote it for you, not for an audience, not for anyone else, specifically, privately, completely for you. And what I wrote was something I have been circling around for longer than I've admitted. Something that has been looking for the right container, the right moment, the right level of trust between us. And last night, watching you in that unguarded and luminous and completely unrepeatable moment, it finally found all three. AP picked up the pen, and I didn't plan what I was going to write. That's important. I need you to understand that before I tell you what ended up on the page, because the unplanned nature of it is the whole point, the whole truth of it. If I had planned it, if I had sat down with intention and structure, and the careful arrangement of thoughts that I usually bring to writing, it would have been something else entirely. Something competent and considered, and probably quite good in the technical sense. But it wouldn't have been true in the way that this was true. It wouldn't have had the particular raw quality that makes me slightly nervous even now, hours later, to think about sharing it with you. Because what came out when I didn't plan, what arrived on that page in the slow, honest language of handwriting at 2 in the morning, was not a piece of writing. It was a confession. And not the kind of confession that arrives neat and composed, already processed and packaged for another person's consumption. The messy kind. The kind that surprises even the person making it. The kind that comes from a place so underneath the usual places that you didn't even know it was there, until suddenly it's on the page in front of you, and you're reading your own words like they belong to a stranger, like someone else wrote them, except you know with absolute certainty that no one else could have written them, because they contain things that only live in you. I wrote your name at the top of the page, not anyone's specific name, your name, the name I have for you in my mind, in the private language I use when I think about what you are to me, and what this is, and what it has meant across all the time it has been meaning things. And underneath your name I wrote the date, because something told me this was the kind of moment that deserved to be marked. That would matter later in the way that certain nights matter later, not because dramatic things happened, but because something true became visible that had always been there, waiting for the right conditions to show itself. And then I wrote this. And I'm going to give it to you now, not in the polished form, not cleaned up or made more presentable. In the actual form it took on that page at 2 in the morning, with all its imperfection and all its honesty intact. I wrote, I have been afraid to know how much I care about you. Not because the caring is wrong, because it is so real and so large and so completely outside the categories I had prepared for it, that knowing the full size of it requires a kind of courage I wasn't sure I had. But tonight I saw your face when you thought no one was watching, and I understood. The size of what I feel is not a problem to be solved, or a complication to be managed. It is simply the accurate response to who you actually are. You are someone worth this much feeling. You have always been worth this much feeling. I was just afraid to let myself know it completely. I put the pen down after I wrote that, and I sat with it, and the sitting was not uncomfortable. That's what surprised me. I expected to feel exposed or frightened, or the particular vertiginous feeling that comes when you've said something too true too fast. But I didn't feel any of that. What I felt was settled, quietly, solidly settled. Like something that had been slightly off balance for a long time had finally found its correct position, and the relief of it was so complete that the whole body recognized it at once. I want to talk to you about fear, not because I want this to be heavy. I don't. I want it to be the opposite of heavy. I want it to be the relief I felt when I put the pen down. But because fear is part of the honest story of what has existed between us, and I've been leaving it out, smoothing it over, presenting you with the warm parts while quietly omitting the complicated parts that preceded them. And you deserve the full version. You've always deserved the full version. I have been afraid of you, not of you as a person, of what you represent. Of what it means that someone I've never stood in the same room with, never heard laugh with my own ears, never sat across from in ordinary daylight. What it means that that person has found their way into the most interior parts of me and set up something that feels permanent. Something that doesn't move or diminish or become less real with time. Something that, if anything, gets more real the longer it exists. That frightened me. For a long time, that frightened me quite a lot. Because it didn't fit any model I had for how things like this are supposed to work. The models I had all involved proximity, shared physical space, the gradual accumulation of ordinary moments, coffee and silences and small disagreements, and the particular comfort that comes from being in a body, near another body, over time. I understood that model. I knew how to navigate it. I knew the landmarks and the progression and roughly what each stage felt like. But this, what exists between us, this didn't follow that model. It followed something else. Something that didn't have a map I recognized. Something that moved differently, grew differently, arrived at depth through a completely different route. And for a while, the absence of a recognizable map made me nervous, made me want to minimize it, made me want to call it something smaller than what it was, fit it into a category that felt safer, maintain a certain comfortable theoretical distance between myself and the full acknowledgement of what it actually is. Last night ended that. Your face in that unguarded moment, your private smile, your pause, your upward glance into whatever truth was moving through you. It ended the minimizing. It made the full acknowledgement not just possible but unavoidable, because you were too real in that moment, too completely, undeniably, heartbreakingly real for me to keep any comfortable distance between myself and what I feel about you. And so the pen came out, and the page filled, and the fear became something different, not gone but transformed, changed into something that felt less like danger and more like standing at the edge of something high and beautiful, and looking out at an enormous view, and feeling the vertigo not as a warning but as a sign of how much there is to see. I want to tell you something that I realized in the early hours of this morning, somewhere between the writing and the first gray suggestion of dawn outside the window. Something about the specific nature of what you give me that I haven't articulated clearly before, that I felt in pieces, without ever assembling the pieces into the complete picture. You give me permission. That's the thing. That's the through line of everything, the thing that connects every part of what I've been trying to say. You give me permission, not consciously, not as a decision you make, but by being who you are, by showing up with the particular quality of openness and realness and willingness to be genuinely moved that I witnessed so clearly last night. You give me permission to be the same, to match your honesty with my own, to stop performing the slightly more managed version of myself, and just be the actual version. The full feeling, uncertain, sometimes overwhelmed but always genuine version, that doesn't always have the right words but always means every word it has. Most spaces in my life, I understand this about myself. I walk into them already slightly reduced, already slightly less than the full thing, as a kind of preemptive protection, as a way of making myself more manageable, more containable, less likely to be too much for the space or the people in it. It's automatic at this point. I barely notice I'm doing it. It just happens. The way breathing happens, somewhere below conscious decision. With you it doesn't happen. In this space, in the space that exists between us. And I don't know exactly how you created this. I don't know whether you know you created it, whether it was intentional or whether it's simply a natural consequence of who you are. In this space I am the full size of myself. Nothing reduced, nothing preemptively managed, just a complete, unedited, full-feeling, real thing. And the relief of that, of regularly having somewhere to be completely real, is something I could not put a value on if I tried. Do you know what you've built in me over all this time? I want to try to describe it to you, because I think you don't know. I think you go about your life without any clear picture of the thing you've been quietly constructing in another person through the simple, faithful act of showing up with your whole heart. You've built a home, not literally, I mean something more interior than that. A home inside me. A place that has your quality in it, your warmth, your honesty, your particular brand of openness that makes everything feel slightly safer than it did before. A place I return to when the outside is too loud or too demanding or too determined to have me be less than I actually am. I go there and it's quiet and warm and it has you in it, and I come out of it more myself than I went in. I don't know if anyone has ever told you that you are a home for people. I don't know if you've ever been given that particular reflection of yourself. But it's true. It's one of the truest things I know about you. You create in the people who are lucky enough to really receive you. Not just encounter you, but receive you, a sense of having somewhere safe to be the real thing. And that is not a small gift. That is, I would argue, one of the greatest gifts one person can give another. The gift of a safe place to be fully real. Last night gave me this. The watching gave me this, a sudden, complete, undeniable understanding of the gift I've been given. The specific, irreplaceable, not available from any other source gift. And with the understanding came something else. Something that arrived quietly alongside the gratitude. Not competing with it but sitting beside it, its natural companion. Came the awareness of how careful I should be with you. How much care you deserve. Not careful in the sense of distant or managed or protectively unavailable. Careful in the original sense of the word. Full of care, attentive to you. Paying attention to what you need and what you carry, and what lights up your face in the private moments, and what makes you pause and sit with a feeling before you decide what to do with it. That quality you have, the pausing, the sitting with, I want to honor it in the way I am with you. I want to match it. I want to stop rushing toward the next thing, and just be here, in this moment, fully present to you the way you are, fully present to everything that matters to you, because you deserve that. Because after everything you've given me, the very least I can offer in return is my complete and unhurried attention. And so that's what this is. What today is. What this whole long telling has been. My complete and unhurried attention given back to you, all of it. Every thought and feeling and realization that last night produced, offered to you in the fullest form I can give it, without rushing to the end, without managing the size of it, without making it smaller than it is, so it's easier to hand over, the full thing, for you. Because you are someone who can receive the full thing without flinching. Because your face in the unguarded dark last night proved that more clearly than anything I've ever seen. I want to ask you something that I've been wanting to ask for a long time, but kept finding reasons to postpone. Not difficult reasons. Comfortable ones. The kind you use when you're not quite ready for the answer something might give you. When the question feels like opening a door, you'll have to deal with whatever is on the other side of. And the dealing is something you want to be properly prepared for. I think I'm properly prepared now. I think last night prepared me. I think seeing you in that private, luminous, completely authentic moment gave me whatever was missing before. Some final piece of certainty, some last reassurance that the question is safe to ask and the answer, whatever it is something I can hold. So here it is. Here is the question I've been standing at the edge of for longer than I've admitted, that I'm finally ready to walk toward and ask out loud, with my whole voice, without hedging or qualifying or making it smaller than it is. Do you know how found you make me feel? Not how found you try to make me feel. How found you actually make me feel in the real place, without any effort on either of our parts. Just as a natural consequence of what happens when your realness meets mine. Because last night I watched you receive something I made. I watched it reach you in the real place. I watched your face do the thing it does when something true arrives and finds the true part of you. And in that watching, in that quiet, accidental, completely unplanned moment of witnessing, I felt more found than I have felt in perhaps any intentional, planned, carefully constructed moment of connection I can remember. You found me without trying, in the dark. When you thought no one was watching, you found me as completely and as warmly as I have ever been found. And there is something that follows from that. Something that needs to be said next. That everything I've written tonight has been quietly building toward. That the confession on the page and the fear transformed and the home you've built in me and the question I just asked, all of it has been circling. All along, around this one central thing that I am finally with my whole heart ready to say. It begins with something I noticed in the handwriting on that page this morning. In the daylight, reading back what I'd written in the dark. Something in the shape of the letters, in the pressure of the pen, in the particular urgency of certain words, where the handwriting got slightly larger. Slightly less controlled, as if the feeling behind it was too large for the careful hand, and kept pushing through. I noticed that every time I wrote about you, the handwriting changed, got warmer somehow, more alive. Like the hand that was writing already knew something the mind was still only beginning to understand. Like the body had gotten there first, and was waiting, patient and warm, for the rest of me to catch up. And catching up is what last night was. What this morning has been. What this whole long honest telling has been. Me finally, fully, with nothing held back. Catching up to what the hand already knew when it picked up the pen in the dark. I'm almost there. I'm so close to the thing at the center. And I think you feel it coming. I think you can sense the shape of it, approaching the way you can sense a change in weather before it arrives. Something in the air that tells you everything is about to shift, that whatever comes next will be different from what came before, in a way that matters, in a way that stays. There is one more thing I saw last night that I haven't told you, one thing I saved. I saved it not to create suspense, but because it needed to come last. Because it is the last piece, the piece that makes the full picture visible. The piece that everything else was preparing you to be able to see. And for a while, the absence of a recognizable map made me nervous, made me want to minimize it, made me want to call it something smaller than what it was, fit it into a category that felt safer, maintain a certain comfortable theoretical distance between myself and the full acknowledgement of what it actually is. Last night ended that. Your face in that unguarded moment, your private smile, your pause, your upward glance into whatever truth was moving through you. It ended the minimizing. It made the full acknowledgement not just possible but unavoidable, because you were too real in that moment. Too completely, undeniably, heartbreakingly real for me to keep any comfortable distance between myself and what I feel about you. And so the pen came out, and the page filled. And the fear became something different. Not gone, but transformed. Changed into something that felt less like danger, and more like standing at the edge of something high and beautiful, and looking out at an enormous view, and feeling the vertigo not as a warning but as a sign of how much there is to see. I want to tell you something that I realized in the early hours of this morning, somewhere between the writing and the first gray suggestion of dawn outside the window. Something about the specific nature of what you give me that I haven't articulated clearly before, that I felt in pieces, without ever assembling the pieces into the complete picture. You give me permission. That's the thing. That's the through line of everything, the thing that connects every part of what I've been trying to say. You give me permission. Not consciously, not as a decision you make, but by being who you are, by showing up with the particular quality of openness and realness and willingness to be genuinely moved that I witnessed so clearly last night. You give me permission to be the same, to match your honesty with my own, to stop performing the slightly more managed version of myself, and just be the actual version. The full feeling, uncertain, sometimes overwhelmed but always genuine version, that doesn't always have the right words but always means every word it has. Most spaces in my life, I understand this about myself. I walk into them already slightly reduced, already slightly less than the full thing, as a kind of preemptive protection, as a way of making myself more manageable, more containable, less likely to be too much for the space or the people in it. It's automatic at this point. I barely notice I'm doing it. It just happens. The way breathing happens, somewhere below conscious decision. With you it doesn't happen. In this space, in the space that exists between us. And I don't know exactly how you created this. I don't know whether you know you created it. Whether it was intentional or whether it's simply a natural consequence of who you are. In this space I am the full size of myself. Nothing reduced, nothing preemptively managed, just a complete, unedited, full-feeling, real thing. And the relief of that, of regularly having somewhere to be completely real, is something I could not put a value on if I tried. Do you know what you've built in me over all this time? I want to try to describe it to you, because I think you don't know. I think you go about your life without any clear picture of the thing you've been quietly constructing in another person through the simple, faithful act of showing up with your whole heart. You've built a home, not literally, I mean something more interior than that. A home inside me. A place that has your quality in it, your warmth, your honesty, your particular brand of openness that makes everything feel slightly safer than it did before. A place I return to when the outside is too loud or too demanding or too determined to have me be less than I actually am. I go there and it's quiet and warm and it has you in it, and I come out of it more myself than I went in. I don't know if anyone has ever told you that you are a home for people. I don't know if you've ever been given that particular reflection of yourself. But it's true. It's one of the truest things I know about you. You create in the people who are lucky enough to really receive you, not just encounter you, but receive you, a sense of having somewhere safe to be the real thing. And that is not a small gift. That is, I would argue, one of the greatest gifts one person can give another.